Right now you have a number on your phone. Maybe it's your bank account. Maybe it's a digital wallet. Maybe you haven't checked in a few days because you're afraid of what it says. But somewhere on a server in a building you'll never visit, a number exists that decides whether you eat well this month, whether you can afford a doctor, whether you can help your family or not. That number isn't printed on gold. It isn't backed by anything physical. It isn't stored somewhere you could physically point to. It is, in the most literal sense of the word, a shared hallucination, a story that 8 billion people agreed to believe. And here's the thing nobody tells you. It wasn't always this story. For most of human history, money as you know it did not exist. And the moment you understand how it actually began, not the version they teach in school, but the real version, the one archaeologists and anthropologists pieced together over decades, it changes how you see every transaction you've ever made, every debt you've ever felt, every moment you've looked at your account and felt like you were failing. If this is the kind of question you want answers to, the ones that reshape how you see the world, make sure you're subscribed. New videos every week, and we're just getting started. Because by the end of this video, you won't see money as money anymore. You'll see it for what it is. One of the most sophisticated, most fragile, and most underestimated inventions in the history of our species. Let's start at the beginning. Not the beginning you expect. Forget coins, forget bills, forget crypto. Go back 10,000 years. You're in a small village, somewhere in what would one day become the Middle East. You're a farmer. You grow barley. Your neighbor is a potter. He makes clay vessels. You need a pot. He needs grain. Simple enough, right? You trade. Except it's not simple. Because what if your neighbor, the potter, doesn't need grain right now? He just had a good harvest. He needs leather. And the man with the leather needs fish. And the fisherman needs a new blade. And the person making blades needs grain. This problem has a name. Economists call it the double coincidence of wants. And it's the reason why the romantic idea that human civilization began with simple bartering between happy villagers is, according to most contemporary anthropologists, almost entirely wrong. In 2011, economic anthropologist David Graeber published a book called Debt, The First 5,000 Years. He spent years digging through historical records, archaeological findings, and anthropological fieldwork from dozens of civilizations. His central argument was explosive. There is no historical evidence that any society primarily organized itself around barter. The free market of Stone Age traders swapping axes for fish? It never existed. Not like that. What actually existed was something far more human. Debt. Not formal debt. Not interest rates and contracts. But social debt. The debt of obligation. The debt of community. You helped me build my roof and now I owe you something. I don't know exactly when or in what form I'll repay it, but we both know the balance exists. Archaeologists working in ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, found evidence of this stretching back over 5,000 years. Clay tablets with records of what people owed each other. Not ledgers of coin exchanges, records of obligations, of promises, of social memory written into clay. Before money was invented, what held societies together wasn't a medium of exchange. It was trust, and the record of that trust was debt. So when money finally did appear, and it took a very long time to appear in anything like the form we'd recognize, it wasn't invented by clever merchants trying to make trade more efficient. It was invented by something far more powerful, and far less noble. But here's where the story gets strange. Here's the part that changes everything. Because the question isn't when money was invented. Historians roughly agree on that. The real question, the one that nobody at school ever asked, is why. And the answer isn't what you think. The first money wasn't created to free you. It was created to control you. Let's go to Mesopotamia, 3000 BCE, the city of Ur, one of the first true cities on Earth, with tens of thousands of inhabitants, temples the size of mountains, and a bureaucracy sophisticated enough that it would feel familiar to anyone who's ever worked in a large organization. At the center of Ur was the temple complex. And the temple didn't just handle religion. The temple ran the economy. It was a redistribution center, a warehouse, a bank, and a government all in one. Farmers brought their grain, craftsmen brought their goods. The temple distributed resources and tracked obligations on clay tablets using a unit called the shekel. Here's the critical detail. The shekel wasn't a coin. It was a unit of weight, specifically the weight of barley that an average worker was expected to produce in a day. A shekel of silver was how much silver weighed the same as a shekel of barley. The currency wasn't something you could hold. It was an accounting unit, an abstraction, a number in a ledger controlled by the temple priests. Sound familiar? Now jump forward about 2,000 years to ancient Athens, Rome, and China. In each of these civilizations, coins appear, real, physical, metal coins. And historians have noticed something fascinating about where they appear first. They don't appear first in markets. They appear first near armies. This is the argument that David Graeber makes with striking historical evidence. The state, whether a king, an emperor, or a temple, needed to pay its soldiers, tens of thousands of them. You can't pay an army in grain alone, it's too bulky to transport. So you mint coins, you give your soldiers coins, but then you need those soldiers to be able to eat. So you demand that all the farmers and merchants in your territory pay their taxes in those same coins. Now suddenly, everyone needs coins. And the only way to get coins is to sell something to the soldiers. And the only way the soldiers have coins is if the king gives them to them. The market doesn't create money. The state creates money and then creates the market around it. In 1971, economists and historians found a clear modern echo of this principle. U.S. President Richard Nixon announced that the dollar would no longer be convertible to gold. The Bretton Woods system, the agreement that had backed the world's currencies to physical gold since 1944, was over. From that moment forward, the U.S. dollar became what's called fiat currency. Fiat is Latin for let it be done. It means money backed by nothing but a government's command. By decree, by authority. Every major currency on Earth today is fiat currency. The euro, the pound, the yen, the peso. None of them are backed by gold, silver, or any physical commodity. They are backed by one thing and one thing only. Your belief that they are worth something. Your belief and the belief of everyone around you. And their belief about everyone else's belief. It is, in the most technically accurate sense, a collective fiction. The most successful collective fiction in human history. So what went wrong? Or more precisely, when did the fiction start to crack? For most of history, even when money was abstract, even when it was just a number on a clay tablet, people had a direct physical connection to value. A farmer knew exactly how much grain their work produced. A craftsman could see the thing they had made. Value wasn't invisible. The connection between labor and reward was real, tangible, something you could eat. Then slowly that connection broke. In the 17th century, the first paper currencies appeared in Europe. They were IOUs, receipts that represented gold stored in a vault somewhere. Convenient, efficient, clever, and for the first time, money was something you could hold but couldn't use directly. It was a promise from a stranger that a number written on paper was worth something real. By the 20th century, that stranger wasn't even promising gold anymore. They were promising future productivity, future confidence, future growth. And by the 21st century, you don't even hold the paper. You look at a screen, you tap your phone, you get a notification. Somewhere, a number changed. Value moved from one server to another. You will never see it, touch it, or hold it. You will feel it entirely through anxiety, relief, restriction, or freedom, all triggered by a number that a machine tells you exists. Here's a data point that should make you stop for a second. In 2023, the total value of all physical currency in circulation globally, every banknote and coin, was approximately $8 trillion. That sounds enormous. But the total value of all money that exists, including bank deposits, digital balances, and financial instruments, was over $1.3 quadrillion. That's 1,000 trillion. The physical money in your wallet represents less than 1% of the total claimed wealth on Earth. The rest is not stored anywhere. It is not backed by anything physical. It exists because people believe it exists, because institutions say it exists, because systems enforce the belief. And when those systems stop enforcing the belief, even briefly, even partially, you get what happened in Zimbabwe in 2008 when inflation reached 89.7 sextillion%. When that happened in Weimar Germany in 1923, people used their banknotes to light fires because the paper burned more efficiently than the wood it could no longer buy. The fiction is extraordinarily powerful, but it is extraordinarily fragile, and here's what nobody wants to say out loud. You were never taught this. You were taught to earn money, save money, spend money wisely, and stress about money. But you were never taught that the money itself is, at its philosophical core, a social agreement that could unravel. So where does that leave you? Here's the reframe. And this is the part that matters most. If money is a shared story, a collectively maintained fiction, then the way your culture tells that story determines everything. It determines whether you see someone in debt as a failure or as a person caught in a system that was designed at its origin not to liberate them but to extract from them. It determines whether you see yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., running numbers in your head, as someone who is bad at money, or as someone responding entirely rationally to a genuinely abstract, genuinely unstable, genuinely invented pressure. Because here is what the research actually shows about money and the human mind. In 2017, neuroscientist Malaya Mason and her colleagues at Columbia Business School published a series of studies on what they called bandwidth scarcity. When people are under financial stress, the cognitive load of managing money, the constant mental arithmetic of can I afford this, what happens if I can't pay that, consumes somewhere between 13 and 14 IQ points worth of cognitive bandwidth. Not because those people are less intelligent, but because the brain is running an invisible background process 24 hours a day, trying to manage a system so abstract that our ancient architecture was never built to handle it. Your brain evolved to track social relationships, food sources, physical dangers, and seasonal changes. It did not evolve to model inflation curves, variable interest rates, and algorithmic credit scores. The anxiety you feel about money isn't weakness. It is a system designed for tracking mammoths being asked to process a derivative swap. And here's the final piece of this puzzle, the one that ties the whole story together. The societies that existed before money, the ones organized around obligation, community debt, and reciprocal exchange were not paradise. They had their own hierarchies, their own violence, their own forms of suffering. Don't romanticize the past. But they had something we've lost. A direct and visible connection between what you gave and what you received. You helped your neighbor build a house. You could see the house. You could feel the warmth of the meal they gave you in return. The transaction was human, physical, and immediate. We replaced that with a system so abstract that the entire concept of value has become untethered from human experience. We work for numbers. We sacrifice sleep, health, relationships, and time, which is ultimately the only non-renewable resource any human has in exchange for numbers on a screen, backed by a government's decree, validated by a collective belief that we were never asked to consent to. For 10,000 years, from the first clay tablets in Mesopotamia to the first paper banknotes in 17th century Amsterdam to the first credit card swipe in 1950, to your phone today, human civilization has been building an increasingly abstract, increasingly fragile, increasingly all-consuming story about value. And most of us were never told that it was a story. The next time you feel that cold twist in your gut when you check your balance or that low-grade hum of money anxiety that never fully goes away, remember this: you are not bad with money. You are a human animal navigating a 10,000-year-old abstraction that was, at its origin, designed not to free you, but to organize and extract from you. The question isn't whether you can master the system. The question is whether you can see it clearly enough to stop letting it master you. We traded the tangible warmth of human obligation for a number on a screen, and most of us never even knew what we'd given up. If this video changed how you see the world, even slightly, that's exactly why this channel exists. Every week, we take the things you've always believed and ask the question nobody wanted to ask. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And share this with someone who checks their bank account before they check the news. They need to see this.